What if I told you that the place you keep your money reveals the parts of your unconscious that control your financial destiny? Carl Jung believed that the outer world reflects the inner world, that our environments are not random, but symbolic extensions of the psyche. So when you hide money in dark, forgotten places, you're not just misplacing cash, you're acting out a pattern rooted in your shadow. Money is more than currency. It's psychological energy, an archetype of value, power, and exchange. Where you store it is where your unconscious tells you it belongs. Today we'll explore 7 places where storing money reflects a deeper psychological conflict, and how you can use Jungian awareness to rewire your relationship with abundance. 1. Under the bed. The space under your bed represents what Jung called the personal unconscious, the storage room of repressed feelings, forgotten memories, and unresolved fears. When you place money here, you're symbolically burying it in the shadows, out of sight, out of mind. It reflects a fear of facing your desires, or a belief that wealth belongs in hiding. This act isn't neutral, it's a message to the self. I don't feel safe holding abundance in the light, and what remains in the dark cannot grow. To shift, bring your money into consciousness. Place it in a sacred, visible space. Let your wealth be part of your waking world, not your dreamscape. The space under your bed isn't just a physical location. In symbolic terms, it represents what Carl Jung called the personal unconscious. A deep internal chamber where we store the things we don't want to face, repressed emotions, unhealed wounds, forgotten memories, hidden fears. So when you place money under your bed, it's not a neutral act. You're not just keeping it safe, you're burying it in the shadows, tucking away your abundance in a place that's dark, hidden, and psychologically invisible. Unconsciously, this sends a message to your psyche. I don't trust myself with wealth. I'm afraid to let abundance be visible, be seen, be part of my real life. Wealth belongs in hiding. In Jungian language, this is shadow behavior, when something valuable is pushed away, not because it's bad, but because you've been taught to feel unsafe with it. Money then becomes something associated with fear, secrecy, guilt, and here's the truth. What remains in the dark cannot grow. If you treat your abundance like something to be hidden, it will mirror that energy, limited, stuck, disconnected from your conscious life. So how do you shift this? Bring your money into the light of your awareness. Create a sacred, intentional space where your wealth is honored, not hidden. Place it somewhere visible, beautiful, meaningful. Let it live in your waking world, not your dreamscape. Not under your bed, but beside your heart. Because abundance thrives where it is seen, appreciated, and respected. And when you stop hiding your wealth, you stop hiding yourself. 2. On top of the fridge. Symbolically, this space resonates with what Carl Jung might associate with the inflated persona or inflamed ego. It's the place of control, image, projection, the you that tries to keep it all together, even when things are falling apart. So when you put money on top of the fridge, it's not just about convenience. It's a subconscious act that speaks volumes. The ego loves control, but it often comes from fear. You place your wealth up high, out of reach, in the heat, because part of you is anxiously trying to manage uncertainty, trying to keep things in order, in a world that feels chaotic inside. But that heat, it's not just physical, it's symbolic. Heat represents internal pressure, mental overactivity, emotional inflammation. Money placed in such a spot mirrors a nervous system that's overstimulated, a person trying to stay in control while silently burning out. And then comes the clutter. Papers, boxes, things that don't have a place. That's the mind. Scattered, overfull, trying to do too much. This is not the energy where abundance grows. This is fire without grounding. Jung's message was clear. We must integrate, not inflate. We must bring our energy down, back into the body, back into balance. So if your money lives on top of the fridge, ask yourself, where in my life am I seeking control through chaos? Am I trying to look put together while I feel scattered inside? Do I treat wealth like something that needs to be managed rather than welcomed? To shift, take your money down. Bring it to a cool, stable, intentional place. A place of calm energy, not reactive heat. Let your wealth find roots, not flames. Because money, like your spirit, cannot thrive when it's always trying to stay on top. It thrives when it's grounded, respected, and allowed to simply be. The top of the fridge is high, hot, and often cluttered, reflecting what Jung might link to an inflamed ego or inflated persona. The ego seeks control, and placing money in a hot, unstable place mirrors internal anxiety and overstimulation, restlessness, disguised as order. Heat disturbs psychic stability. Chaos on top of the fridge reflects an overactive mind, disconnected from true grounding. Jung taught us to integrate, not inflate. Relocate your money to a cooler, balanced space. Let it root, not burn. 3. In the bathroom. The bathroom is not just a place of hygiene. It's a sacred and symbolic zone of the psyche. In Jungian psychology, it reflects the archetypes of purification, release, and private shadow work. It's where we cleanse, eliminate, and let go. So when you store money in the bathroom, especially near the toilet, sink, or trash, you're doing something far more meaningful than you might realize. You're not just putting it somewhere, you're placing abundance beside what is meant to be flushed away. This sends a subtle but powerful message to your unconscious. Wealth is dirty. Money is temporary. It doesn't belong with sacred things. It belongs with what we hide, release, or discard. And even if you consciously say, I don't believe that I'm fine with money, the unconscious doesn't speak through belief. It speaks through symbols and placement. Money beside waste, that's your shadow self quietly telling a story. This gesture can reflect old conditioning messages absorbed in childhood or from society. Money is the root of all evil. Rich people are greedy. Having too much is shameful. Without realizing it, you internalize the belief that abundance must be kept out of sight, or worse, eliminated. Jung taught that what we reject, we project. What we consider impure, we push into the shadow. And what lives in the shadow eventually governs us from the dark. So if your money lives near what's flushed, washed away, or thrown out, it becomes part of the cycle of disposal, not prosperity. Because money is an energy, and like all energy, it flows toward where it is respected, not rejected. If you keep your wealth near the drain, don't be surprised if it circulates out of your life just as easily. Bathrooms represent purification and elimination themes, deeply rooted in Jungian archetypes. When you store money near the toilet or sink, you subconsciously associate it with what must be flushed away. It reflects a belief that wealth is dirty, shameful, or temporary. You might say, I'd never think that. But the unconscious speaks through symbol, not logic. So money near waste, that's your shadow speaking. Instead, store money in places that honor containment, not release. Choose environments that symbolize value, not disposal. 4. In a cluttered closet. The closet is not just a place to store clothes. It is a symbolic archive of the self, and often it holds the parts of us we've outgrown or never dared to become. Old jackets we no longer wear, shoes that never fit quite right, gifts we never used, dreams we packed away, versions of ourselves we once imagined but never embodied. Carl Jung might call this the graveyard of the unlived life. The closet becomes a holding chamber for unexpressed identities, for forgotten desires, and the ghosts of who we thought we would be. So when you store money in a cluttered closet, you bind your abundance to those same energies: confusion, regret, psychic stagnation. Your money, like your soul, needs space to move. But in a chaotic, overcrowded space, it gets lost, not physically, but energetically. This may show up in your life as constant hard work with little satisfaction, earning money, but never feeling abundant. A sense of stuckness, like your energy is tied to a heaviness you can't explain, because it is. You're anchoring wealth in a space filled with emotional residue and unfinished stories. Jung taught that what we do not integrate, we store in the shadow. And in this case, the shadow takes physical form in the forgotten sweater, the broken item, the shoes for a life you never lived. So when your money lives there too, it becomes part of the same narrative. This is what could have been. This is where dreams go to disappear. But there is hope, and it begins with a single act: decluttering. Yes, physically, but also symbolically. Letting go of the objects that no longer carry energy. Releasing clothes that don't match the person you are becoming. Saying goodbye to the items that echo a life you've outgrown. Decluttering is more than a chore. It's a ritual of reintegration. It says, I no longer carry what isn't mine. I'm making space for what I'm ready to receive. I honor what I once was, but I do not have to remain there. Move your money to a space that reflects clarity, purpose, and aliveness. Not where dreams are buried, but where they are reborn. Because money like you deserves to live in the present, not in the shadows of a life that was never fully lived. Closets are storage for the unlived parts of ourselves. Outdated clothes, forgotten items, gifts we never used. These represent identities we abandoned or never fully became. Storing money in cluttered closets binds it to confusion, regret, and psychic stagnation. In Jung's terms, this is the graveyard of the unlived life. When money is buried in such spaces, it too becomes a lost potential. You might earn, but never feel fulfilled. You might work hard, but feel stuck. Decluttering becomes a psychological ritual, releasing identities that no longer serve you, so your wealth can breathe again. 5. Near the trash. The trash bin is one of the clearest symbols in our daily environment. It represents what we discard, what we reject, what we no longer wish to identify with. And placing money near the trash, whether intentional or casual, is never just a neutral act. It's a message, not to others, but to yourself. A quiet, symbolic statement that says this doesn't matter. This is expendable. This doesn't deserve sacred space. Carl Jung called this realm the shadow, the part of ourselves that we disown, deny, or feel ashamed of. The qualities we suppress, whether it's vulnerability, anger, power, or even the desire for wealth, don't disappear. We project them outward or bury them in unconscious behaviors. So when money lives next to garbage, the unconscious translation is simple. Wealth is not sacred. It's disposable. It doesn't belong. And even if you say consciously, I want to be rich, Your environment may be whispering the opposite, but I don't believe I deserve to hold it. The psyche speaks in images and rituals, more than words. So ask yourself, where do I keep my abundance? Does it have a home that reflects worth, value, and respect?